myself, Amelia Wren, my naughty scientist, Mr. Glacier, and my wonder dog, Posy, are going to change the world. Are you ready for us to do so? This balloon on which I stand, the Mammoth, is a balloon like no other and will allow us to ascend higher into the air than any man or woman has ever gone. The French rose to 23,000 feet. Today, we will break that record and reclaim it for these fair shores.
And that's a clip from the Aeronauts. I'm delighted to say being joined by one of its stars, Felicity Jones. Hello, Felicity.
Hello, Simon.
How are you?
Very well, thanks.
It's been a while since Rogue One.
It has, yeah.
What have you been up to?
Too many years. I know. Too long.
It is too long. Anyway, so the Aeronauts, what an interesting story. So it's you and Eddie Redmayne in a balloon. I was intrigued and fascinated by this story. Tell us about where we are. So it's London, 1862. You tell us the story.
Yes, the Aeronauts. It's about two people, one a scientist and one an aeronaut, who go up in a balloon and go on an adventure. And it's a story as to whether they will survive. And it's full of spectacle. Yeah, it's a story of trying to beat the elements, and also there are some psychological demons going on at the same time.
There are. So you are Amelia Wren, and the other guy is Eddie Redmayne, and he's the scientist guy.
Yes.
So tell us, and his character is based on a real character, and you're a composite. And tell us about Amelia and who she is and where she fits into the story.
Yes, Amelia Wren is one of the people she is most inspired by is a woman called Sophie Blanchard, who was a French aeronaut, who was a real wildcat. And she was actually a woman in the 18th century, and she used to fly solo very late at night, and her penchant was setting off fireworks from the balloon.
Of course, why not?
Exactly, as you do. And actually Napoleon was so obsessed with ballooning in this period that he thought that he could invade England via the gas air balloon, with Sophie Blanchard leading the charge. So she is a huge resource for Amelia Wren.
So Amelia is inspired by that kind of character. And when we meet you right at the very beginning, Eddie is being the kind of he's just into science and all that kind of stuff, and meteorology and so on. And you are the kind of crazy cat, aren't you? You know, you're the one who's doing cartwheels and showing off to the crowd.
Yes, she's very much. Amelia has worked out that in order to make a living, she has to make the taking off of the balloon into a bit of a spectacle and a bit of an event, so that then she can sell tickets and she'll draw the crowds. And so part of her way of doing this is to put on a bit of a show. So in the opening scene in the film, Amelia's entry is one where she comes via a few cartwheels to get to the stage.
She's quite brash as opposed to Eddie's sort of button down.
Yeah, the drama is in their opposition, and she tends to be very instinctive. She's very impulsive. She doesn't like to think about things too much, and he's very much more meticulous and fact obsessed. And what you see is the clash of these personalities.
And it is very much a film and a story that takes place in the basket, and it's you and him. It's a two-hander. I mean, that is the film.
Yes, it's the two of us in a very small space for a long period of time. And actually what happened is when we were playing these parts, is that side of our personality would get amped up. So we would often have these disagreements, which would be slightly Eddie and Felicity, but also slightly Amelia and James.
What does that mean? What's an Eddie and Felicity disagreement?
Well, when because we were playing these parts and they're such opposites, you know, that side of your personality where Eddie would say, please, let's do another take, and then which would be the James side, you know, of wanting to get it exactly right and perfect. And then the Amelia side of me would be, no, let's do it, we've got it, you know, we have to move on to the next and be a little bit more impulsive. And so it was fascinating to see that blend of us as Eddie and Felicity, but also the characters that we were playing.
Yeah, does it, and presumably helped enormously given that you are spending such a lot of time together in such a small space, is the fact that you have history, the fact you've been in Theory of Everything together just a few years ago. So when the idea came and when it landed on your desk, obviously your first question was, who's the other guy?
Yeah, exactly. And also the challenge of making it interesting, because a lot of the time you cut back to their scenes and it is, as you say, it's just two of them sitting in a basket. And so how do we keep that interesting? How do we keep that engaging? And I think knowing that you're making it with someone where you have that level of trust that we'd established in Theory of Everything, it meant that we could really push it. We could take risks. We could improvise. You feel very, very, very safe to pivot from that relationship.
Yeah. Well, how much did you know of 19th century ballooning?
Well, interestingly, the film is sort of a top hits compilation of the best bits of ballooning history. So
Is it? I didn't know there was such a thing.
I know. Who
now
knew?
That's what I call ballooning.
Exactly. It should be like an album. Now ballooning.
Yes. So it consists of a whole number of great little stories, all of which have happened in balloons.
Exactly, at different times throughout history. So the story of obviously the climb that comes from that Amelia does at the end of the film, that comes from a period of history with Glacier and this chap Henry Coxon. The fact that Amelia's husband dies, that comes from Sophie Blanchard, whose own husband had died. So the idea was a sort of amalgamation of ballooning events.
And you've alluded to the end, which we shouldn't dwell on, except to say that I thought the film gets increasingly unpredictable and increasingly extraordinary. And as the balloon climbs to 7 miles, as I understand it, 37,000 feet, that general sense of this is astonishing increases with every minute, so that by the time we get to the last 20 minutes, we don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, good. Yeah, you're strapped in. It's a bit like a roller coaster ride. I mean, ideally, by the end, you should really be on the edge of your seat. And actually, that's what we wanted. Is it is a period film. You know, it is a costume drama. But by the end, you should feel it could be anywhere.
Yes.
You know, it's a story that's really distilled, and it's a story of survival of these two individuals.
And although that is the way it's being sold, it feels to me like it's your picture. You know, Eddie's always watchable and great fun, but you're the star. You know, and the stuff that, I know, again, I don't want to talk too much about it, but what you get up to save the balloon in the end, I've never seen in a film ever.
Yeah, she's rather busy. I know. Lucky Eddie, he gets to lie in the basket for,
Yeah.
for half an hour.
How dangerous was it?
It was one of the most grueling experiences of my life. It was physically incredibly challenging.
In what way?
We wanted to get something that felt very, very naturalistic. There's a sequence where I'm swinging myself into the basket. She's fallen off the balloon and she wakes up and she's just on the single rope. And there's a way of doing that where you can have help doing it. You know, you can have someone help swing you in. And we tried that a couple of takes and it just looked so phony and rubbish that we then thought, no, what happens if I try and do it myself? You know, what actually happens when a human being is in that situation? So it was things like that. So I was physically trying to push myself from stationary into that basket over and over again for each take that we were doing, and all the different shots, wide shot and close up. And so getting that level of you putting yourself through it physically is, I think, what really sells the action.
But you're definitely in a balloon and you are flying with Eddie Redmayne, and and as I understand it, you did crash once.
We did, yeah. We crashed on, it was actually the first day that we went up. And we were doing this wide shot of the balloon
first day, right?
with a helicopter spinning round us, and then the helicopter got the shot sped off, and then we ended up. The pilot was worried we were going to hit some trees, so we threw out all the balloon is powered by sand, so we threw out the sand, which is the ballast that then made us shoot up. And then the pilot turned around and said, "Oh, it looks like we've thrown out too much sand." At which point we're sort of looking back at him rather sort of pale-faced, going, what do we do now? And then suddenly the trees we'd hoped to avoid were upon us, and we were skidding through them and then grabbing each other's hands and crash landing. And yeah,
so you
that was
actually
day
crashed
one.
on the first day?
Yes.
Insurance must have been a very
I
interesting
know.
account. Again, I think I've got the timing right. All of this time that you're filming this, you're planning your wedding?
Yes. So I was doing a very odd sort of dance between rehearsing stunt sequences and doing various sort of acrobatics and then going for dress fittings in between. So it was a bit of a sort of schizophrenic period.
Yes, I would have think that would be quite memorable. But were either of you injured?
Yeah, we did actually. We accumulated a few war wounds throughout the experience. So poor Eddie ended up twisting his ankle, stepping off set, and then I had a rib injury from falling into the basket repeatedly, and we were both covered in rather glorious purple bruises.
Were you still bruised on your wedding day?
There were a few that had to be covered up, but there's nothing like learning how to be an acrobat for preparing you for a wedding day.
Can you explain your lack of gloves?
She does have gloves and she throws them out.
Oh, okay, because both of you, I mean, he particularly seems ridiculously underdressed.
I know. She does have her gloves, but what happens, and I actually can't remember if this is in the final cut,
Okay.
but what happens originally is she takes the gloves off to cut. She has to cut the rope at the beginning when they're in the storm. And she to let the sand go because she thinks, we've got to fly above the storm to get out of it. So then because her hands are so slippery, she takes off the gloves and she cuts the ballast.
Did it put you off ballooning?
I'm never going in a balloon ever again. Ever. I used to not be scared of heights, and now from making this film, I'm petrified.
You're Amelia Wren, fearless aeronaut, but you're not going to go
On screen.
But, you're definitely intellectual equals in this film, which I imagine must have been one of the reasons that you did it, and also enormously liberating. He's got his agenda. He wants to study the Earth's natural patterns, but you're a scientist as well. You're not there as ballast. It's your picture, and you are considered equal all the way through the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think we both felt coming back and working together, the only way it would work is that we both fell in love with those parts, and it had to be something very different from Theory of Everything, and they had to be equals. I mean, that's what so much of the story is about how these two people are so evenly matched, and they help each other through it. They need each other, but they are, as you say, they're absolutely on a par with each other.
And it feels, again, I think one of the strengths of the film is that it feels as though it's almost in real time. I didn't do the stopwatch, but it feels as though we take off and then we're with you all the way through the ascent and then the incredible sequences that come after that. Again, not wanting to say too much, but it feels as though like we're in the balloon with you.
Absolutely. Tom Harper, the director, will be very pleased that you've said that, because he's very proud that it is pretty much real time of the trip as you're watching it.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to want to go in a balloon either. Having
seen the film, it kind of puts you off.
I think it definitely does. What do we see you in next, Felicity? What's up next?
I have a film that I'm about to be doing with George Clooney that I'm very excited about, that I start shooting in January, called Good Morning Midnight.
And anything you can tell us about that?
No, my lips are sealed.
Okay.
Top secret.
Felicity, it's always a pleasure to have you on the programme. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.